Chapter 8. A Bitter Report. Desicrus regarded his forces arrayed on a long stretch of beach near Ashdod with growing fear. He had over 3,000 vicious demons in his army, some of which were of great renown before they were assigned to his service. Yet, with such a company spread out over the cities of Ashdod, Lydda, Emmaus, and Joppa before Geraboth began his project there, Desicrus's dominion and influence had not increased. The followers of Jesus were carrying the message of salvation to his domain, and with each delivery, more turned to Jesus rather than remain in sin. Satan would not allow Desicrus's poor results to go unpunished. The prince of Ashdod addressed his hand-picked overseers of the 3 other cities under his control. When Satan arrives, each of you will be expected to report on the progress of spiritual influence factors for their geographic area. You will need to give the results in the sins of lust, murder, envy, and covetousness. He chose to speak from an outcropping of jagged rocks several yards from the shoreline, where his voice projected into thunderous echoes across the beach. Seath, a menacing spirit in the form of a charred canine, knelt before Desicrus. "My lord Desicrus, I did not know to have this information available before I left Emmaus. Instead, I responded to the call to aid Lydda against the recent incursions by the followers of Christ." Before Desicrus could act on the impulse to smite Seath, the captain of Lydda came before him in a posture of groveling. "This is true, my lord. There is a woman named Dorcas who has become quite a nuisance." Dread permeated every pore of his decrepit skin as Desicrus looked over the western horizon for any sign of Satan's arrival. Since the announcement of Satan's plans to return to the Holy Land, Ashdod had become an ever-tightening noose around Desicrus's neck. Then a spark of hope flickered in his cavernous mind: the conversion of Paul. Saul of Tarsus had been one of Satan's most beloved human pets before the Christ converted the trajectory of his life. Surely this would be more prominent in the Prince of Darkness' mind than the corruption results of a few insignificant cities on the outskirts of Judea. The afternoon sun stretched orange, fiery fingers across the azure skies, as if scratching at the heavens with an ancient ferocity. Far off in the distance, against the lustrous backdrop, a small shard of deep darkness formed. The chasm in the sky grew until it resembled 2 black wings with a radiant gem in the center. From each side of the brilliance, the 2 long dark wings horizontally stretched to the left and to the right. Each one rolled like blackened waves of pitch. Mere minutes later, what had started as a distant anomaly became an immense array of demons flying towards Desicrus and his troops. As the flying demonic legions approached, Desicrus could sense his own company of demons shudder from intimidation. Satan was at the apex of the wide strand of demonic spirits. His form fluctuated between profane and angelic, as if his essence were in a perpetual state of conflict. After so many millennia had passed since Satan fell from grace, he appeared to be a being from the light and the darkness. Yet nothing in Satan's words or deeds displayed any semblance of heaven, only the fiery machinations of hell. Seath spoke first. "Our Lord has brought almost all of his Roman army." Desicrus cringed with this revelation. For Satan to bring his most elite force of nearly 40,000 troops meant this would not be a short visit. At the forefront of Satan's Roman army were 10 divisions of venomous foot soldiers known as pythons. These lying spirits resembled various types of snakes in coloring, but all were similar in size. They had lidless eyes that glowed in shades of red, orange, or yellow, depending on the form of attack they were engaged in. Red for confrontation, a dimmed orange when the attack came with stealth, and yellow when engaged in spiritual attacks against humans. These soldiers were equipped with 2 weapons: long, sharp, venomous fangs that could induce panic in many bite victims, and a cadre of lethal spears they could fling with their coiled tails. The pythons were divided into groups of 100 and were each commanded by a rotund centurion from a class of demons known as Balban. The Balbans had heads shaped like pachyderms, devoid of trunk or tusks, but endowed with 4 vicious horns curved backwards from the front. They rode formidable hellhounds, which aided them in battle. Also equipped with a cat of 13 tails and a twisted sword of obsidian, these ruthless spirits would kill as many of their own chargers in battle as the enemy's if their troops were not fully committed to the fight. These insidious field captains were positioned in the middle of their forces so they could strike every one of their chargers with the cat of 13 tails when the need arose. Behind the divisions of pythons were 20 detachments of ruinous spirits called Furies. These were considered hell's finest foot soldiers, able to engage in prolonged fighting without many casualties. Their goat heads were mounted on the bodies of vultures, which maneuvered with the dexterity of sparrows. The Furies used sword-like talons to tear chunks off their adversaries or breathe vapors of delusions into their foes, which would make them easier to kill. The Furies were also divided into groups of 100 and were also commanded by a single Balban. At the back of the procession, Satan sat on a massive reptilian beast with 3 heads, whose putrid mouths spouted poisonous words in a perpetual curse against God and man. To the Prince of Darkness left flew a terrifying harbinger of sin and death named Covetousness, and on the other side of Satan flew Covetousness's twin, Vainglory. These 2 demonic terrors were Satan's crowning achievement, for he had fashioned them from all his pride, hate, and envy. Just after the flood, Satan's wrath burned with white heat after the loss of his precious demons known as Leviathans. To replace them, he had his master of arcane arts fashion shards of anguish from the obsidian in the deepest caverns of the pits. Then he chose the most brutal hellspawn from among his assassins, the twins Covetousness and Vainglory, and chained them in a lake of lava. There he took the shards of anguish, 6 for each of the twins, and hammered them into their ashen hearts. Their screams still echo through the deepest holes in the pits. Now Covetousness and Vainglory were Satan's favorite weapons. Hell's army landed on the shoreline of Ashdod, and the earth shuddered. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Far off on the outskirts of Jerusalem in his command tent, Michael held council with his top advisors and the herald of God, Gabriel. He spoke with urgency. Satan has landed with a mighty force on the western shores of Judea. His intentions are not known, yet we must prepare for the worst. Gabriel responded, "His anger burns hot with the loss of his favored servant, Saul of Tarsus. I believe he intends on persuading Saul to give up on his new calling and return to persecuting the son's believers." Standing across from Michael was a wise angel named Timbrel. What of the fallen one Glarius? Could Satan be after him? Michael remained silent for a time before answering. It is possible he intends to add more force to his claim on Glarius, but he wouldn't need such a large army to do this. Another angel added, "How is it that Glarius has evaded capture all this time? Our Father has ordered me to ensure Glarius is protected against any satanic claim until he commands otherwise." The small assembly remained silent for several minutes. Then Timbrel broke the silence. "Our priority now is to determine Satan's primary objective and prepare an adequate response." I agree with you, my sister, and the only way we can respond is with the will of our Father. Go about your duties with fervor and remain in perpetual prayer. We must have God's wisdom to face Satan's designs, Michael said. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Satan's Roman army invaded the shoreline near Ashdod with cool precision. This gave Desicrus sharp pangs of abject terror, yet he managed to move close to the Prince of Darkness and lie prostrate on the sand. "Don't grovel before me. It will not help your plight." Satan's words drove daggers of icy fear into his heart. "Desicrus, stand up and face me." Desicrus began to lift himself up from the sandy beach. His eyes looked down at the soft ground and relished a few more seconds in the coarse dirt. His eyes took in the surroundings incrementally. First his underlings who were still prostrate on the ground nearby. Then overhead, where a vanguard of frenzied demons leered at him. And finally, the Prince of all darkness, Lord of evil, and bearer of light, Lucifer, also known as Satan. "My lord Satan, we welcome you to Ashdod," Desicrus said. You will be pleased to note a steep increase in... Satan stretched out his arm and motioned for Desicrus to cease his report. I will have your report last. Will the governors of Joppa, Lydda, and Emmaus step forward? The first overseer came as close to Desicrus and Satan as he dared and began his account. Emmaus started this year with a major decrease in all sins. Violence, lust, covetousness, and all other areas of temptation have been impacted by the believers of the Nazarene spreading their beliefs. So far, we haven't been able to turn the tide. Recently, I moved most of my forces to aid in the defense of Lydda. My forces and I accompanied a large group of Roman soldiers to Lydda so that we could quell the unrest caused by the followers of Christ. I do not have any updates since my soldiers landed in Emmaus. Lucifer raised his arm. To continue would only increase your impotence. You are equipped with all my knowledge and power, yet you languish in failure before the peasant followers of the carpenter. Captain of Lydda, perhaps you can change the direction of this feeble report? The demonic leader from Lydda named Deceit began his report. We saw the same trends in our area until the Roman governor began requesting a rotation of Roman troops in the town. The proclivities of the Roman men gave us fertile grounds to sow violence and lust. Soon, my efforts were strong enough to overcome one of our nemeses in the town, a woman named Dorcas. You took the initiative to use the Roman soldiers' vile hearts and gain an advantage. I wish all of you had this foresight. Satan looked directly into Desicrus's soul as he spoke. Who reports from Joppa? Since Geraboth began work on his project there, we have had limited contact with Joppa, Desicrus replied. So, you did not have the foresight to keep an overseer in Joppa to inform you of its spiritual status? Satan's breath came out in plumes of fiery sulfur. Geraboth's work in Joppa does not give him time or the resources to manage the day-to-day activities. Fool! With a flick of his wrist, Satan hit Desicrus with such force that the demon crashed into a rocky cliff hundreds of feet away. It is apparent to me that the leadership in Judea, apart from deceit, is lacking vision and resolve. Desicrus, since you oversee these wretches, I would like you to report on Ashdod next. Satan spoke in cool tones edged with dangerous undertones. The prince of Ashdod partially recovered his senses and flew back to where he had been. He gulped down several drops of bitter bile. Our efforts in Ashdod have yielded a 10-fold increase in murder and a 50-fold increase in all sexual sin. The pinnacle of our efforts came yesterday in the form of a rape and double murder. Impressive. Show me the bodies of your victims, and this day may go better for you, Satan said. Desicrus tightened up. The bodies? Your trophies. Surely you kept track of your trophies. How would I verify your deeds without the bodies? The Prince of Darkness asked. Siath, retrieve the bodies of the young bride and her husband. Desicrus hoped against all hope that there were remains to retrieve. Siath's eyes were as bright moons, wide, white, and filled with horror. Then, in an instant, Desicrus' underling disappeared. After the departure of Siath, Desicrus warily watched Satan as the latter paced, and the former's mind throbbed with each step his master took. What is the status of Pilate? Satan asked. This question took Desicrus by surprise. Surely the former governor's travels were not the responsibility of Desicrus and his minions. Why would Satan put this on him? There were two harassing spirits accompanying the governor from Jerusalem, Squiff and Heresy. They have remained with Pilate the entire time. Desicrus answered. His entourage is on the outskirts of the city as he awaits his ship's readiness to leave for Rome, I believe. Satan appeared angry, though a look of amusement occupied his face. Let me understand your thoughts. You had Pontius Pilate's entourage wait outside of your little city. Yes, my lord. I received a full report from Heresy and Squiff. Then I was able to determine Pilate would not leave Ashdod before your scheduled arrival. My only intention was to stall the governor long enough for you to arrive in Ashdod. The last sentence seemed to appease Satan enough to restrain his more violent impulses. I need to speak with Pilate's harassing spirits immediately. Squiff and Heresy were hastily summoned and brought before Satan. He addressed them without looking in their direction. "Give me an update on your special assignment." Heresy responded first. "Since we joined the governor in Jerusalem, we have assailed his mind relentlessly day and night." "Yes, and he is close to being ready for possession," Squiff added. "He hasn't slept well in many days." Satan laughed. His voice sounded like peals of thunder in a narrow ravine. "The upper echelon of Roman society has abandoned Pontius Pilate. Both of you are to remain with Pilate and continually torment him. Never leave his side." A brief silence fell on the evil assembly. Then Satan turned around and looked at the two demons, then Desicrus. "Now, tell me of this fallen angel." Desicrus spoke first. "These two harassers told me of a body in the waters off Joppa. From their description, I ascertained their discovery could be the remains of a fallen angel, so I dispatched 4 assassins to gain custody of the body." "Body? You assumed the fallen one was deceased?" Satan's tone took on an elevated harshness. "Are you now an expert on fallen angels?" They were uncertain if what they had found was living or dead. Desicrus stammered, doing his best to sound as if he had control of his voice. "I knew you would want me to recover it, so I sent my best assassins." "Why haven't you set the fallen one at my feet?" Desicrus felt an acidic chill cover his throat and chest. "The assassins I sent to retrieve the fallen one are missing." "Well, Prince of Ashdod, your ineptness would usually cost you the rule of your principality. But there is a matter of much greater urgency for me to address," Satan bellowed for all in attendance to hear. "The reports coming out of Damascus incur the deepest levels of my wrath. One of my favorite instruments against the followers of Christ seems to have been persuaded to join them. I am here in Judea to reclaim the allegiance of Saul, my Pharisee from Tarsus.